Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now. I talked about it last week a couple times about going inside the hire of Dan Quinn, why this team always liked him. Now, not saying he was the top candidate all along. I don't know you could say that about anybody, to be honest. But the point is they liked him all along. He was not just some fallback option for them. And there's one answer he had in their interview that I think that really stood out to them in particular. And also the story also talks about or includes some people who contacted them on his behalf unprompted. And as I asked one person in there, how much did you hear about him throughout this from other people? And I was told that there was significantly more contact about him than any other candidate they had on their list. Anyways, that's up on ESPN.com now. Go get a read. In a minute, I'm going to be joined by former Washington Redskin running back / returner / special teams dude / occasional emergency quarterback, Brian Mitchell. Of course, you can hear him on 106.7 on the B-Mitch and JP Finley show. So give it 10 to 2 on weekdays. Give him a listen. But I want to talk to B-Mitch about a couple different things. You got the Combine starting up this week, so his memories from the 1990 Combine, what still irks him to this day, but also just you can go inside the mindset of what takes a guy from a fifth-round pick to having a guy who's discussed for the Hall of Fame. He gives some really good insight on how he approached the Combine. I think you learn something about a guy when you talk and when you listen to how he approached it. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, I talked to him about Devin Hester, who was just recently voted in, and how can that help Mitchell's candidacy, and we'll see where that goes. I do not have a vote in the Hall of Fame, so it's not up to me, but I do want to bring up the topic because I think it's important. And also, I want to talk to Brian about his BS meter. He has a really good one, folks. And he's been around the staff a little bit. He knows some of these coaches. So what does he think about what Washington is putting together, and just what he thinks this portends for them down the road? We don't know how this staff is going to be. We know that we considered a good staff right now. What they produce, we'll see. But all we can go on is what we know right now. And of course, they always have to go out and win. Every staff does. But I wanted to talk to Brian about all that stuff. So here we go. Oh, by the way, one other thing. The salary cap information came out, the official number. Washington has approximately $85 million or so in cap space. You have to deduct probably about $9 to $10 million of that for their rookie allocation, but that still leaves them in a great spot going into the offseason, and they'll have the most salary cap room in the NFL. All very good. Now, I know this team wants to build through the draft and supplement through free agency, but this gives them the ability to go out and get a couple. I would hate to say big name signing because it sounds like you're doing it for a splash value. I think they're going to go out and they can have some really smart signings for players who are good, who can help them. So there's a difference. Like Dan Snyder, it was all about the splash. They got guys that maybe not everybody wanted on the staff, but that would maybe, have that big win the headline in the off seasons type deal. I think they could get some big signings here and some expensive ones, but I think they're going to be of a higher quality or maybe more conducive to success in Washington. Anyways, we'll see what happens. But I just want to fill you in on that. And again, the Combine week, going to have stuff all week for you because I will not be there, but I will be talking to people who are. And obviously, there's a lot going on with that. Dan Quinn and Adam Peters will speak at the Combine on Tuesday. They have more on that throughout the week. So I'll be back on Tuesday with another episode. But before we get there, here's my conversation with B-Mitch. B-Mitch. So they have the Combine coming up starting. This is going to air Monday. And I know you were talking a little bit about this on your show with JP, about your experience at the 1990 Combine. And it sounds like it still kind of tweaks you a little bit what some teams said to you. Like if you could go back on the field now, you probably still want to run through the Steelers like it was your last game ever.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I've always had a tendency to use things to motivate me.
Really?
And when I was told that, you just always seem to be moving forward, I'm like, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? And, other coaches that said, other scouts who said, we're going to draft you in this round, that round, they didn't. That's why the Steelers, the Saints, the Cardinals, you go look at my times against them, I had some good games because I just felt like I was at a smaller school. I was moving my position, and I wasn't given the respect as a football player. I didn't just go down in a small school and just sit in the pocket and have a great offensive line. My guys worked their butts off, and I ran the ball. I threw the ball, and I thought I was very, very durable. But I don't think you have to dance. I don't even dance in clubs. Why am I dance on a football field?
Well, that's the last thing you ever did, but that's what it was always your strength, though. That's why I think it's funny because as a returner, it was, you cut and you're going forward and you're getting yards because of it.
But I think like if you really sit back, John, and think about it, the NFL has come up, or certain people in the NFL has developed a mindset of who they think and what they think every position player should look like or be.
Right.
I'm not prototypical return man. I was 5'10" and a half, and my play at 221 was my best years in the league. That's the fullback, basically. Most returners are 180, 185, 5'9" to 6 feet, whatever, but they weren't built like me. And I think that's the reason I was able to play 14 years and miss only one football game. I think they have to learn now that the quarterback doesn't come 6'6" anymore all the time.
Right.
The running back is not going to always be the exact same size. The offensive lineman may be a little bigger, a little more athletic or whatever. But people change over time, and this game is going to grow based off of the athletes, not necessarily someone's mindset.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, you say 14 years, missed one game. It wasn't just as a returner, as we all know. Like that's what the amazing part of it was too. But when I'm going to get to that in a minute too, with the Hall of Fame and all that. But with the Combine, how much stock do you put in that as an ex-player or someone now who's an observer? How much stock do you put into what goes on there and what things matter to you coming out of there?
Well, I think for me, I didn't think it was the end-all be-all, and I still don't think it's the end-all be-all, but I understand the reasoning behind why they do it. You get everybody in a control situation where they are controlling everything. But as a player, you have to be able to, understand that now you get a chance to be shoulder to shoulder, side by side with someone that might have gone to Notre Dame. I was there with Tony Rice, okay? And everything Tony did, I made sure I was right next to him. When Tony ran about a 4.7, 4.8, and I went 4.4 something, okay, cool, I'm better than that. When he had his jump and his shuttle drill, I made sure I was right behind him. I think that's the things where you find a way where now I'm no longer playing in Southwest Louisiana at the Swamp, it was our stadium was called, with no TV around. I'm now side by side with you. And if they're looking at you as the best, then I shatter what you're doing, then I'm going to make them look at me again. So I understood it. I didn't like a lot of it, especially the part standing in some damn boxes on the stage where all these people just looking at you like, I don't understand that aspect at all. Everybody don't look the same.
Cringy.
So it's weird, but I understand what they're doing. And it was cool for me because I went as a quarterback. Think about that. And so I knew I wasn't going to play quarterback, but I wanted to go as a quarterback because I'm going to have numbers that are going to make me look better than the other quarterbacks. And then they can still see I could possibly throw a football, which I ended up being the emergency quarterback for 14 years. So, and it helped me. I think that kept me around sometimes. As Coach Gibbs said, the more you can do, the longer you can play.
Did you do more than one rep on 225 than Smoot did?
I didn't even do the bench press at the Combine.
Really?
They didn't make us do it. I did the bench press when they finally came down to my school, and I did easily. I did 19. I think I could have done more, but I racked it. I say, did any other quarterback do this? I say, how about running backs? And I racked it. And they're like, you could have done more? Yes, I could have done more. But the thing about it, they didn't know that I power clean over 350 pounds. They didn't know I squatted over 600 pounds. They didn't know I bench over 400 pounds as a 198-pound quarterback. They just say this is a kid coming from Southwest Louisiana, and he might get it, but they didn't understand what I had right here.
So, but I was going to say, like, everything you've told me, if you're paying attention, you're going to pick up on the fact that, hey, this guy's always following this guy. This guy's competitive. You know what I mean? Like, that's the stuff that I would measure. You know, it's funny because I was talking to someone about this earlier today about the little things you look for at a pro day, at the combine, is stuff like that. Like, that's how you learn about a guy, right?
Yeah. And see, that is why, like, my dad always told me, find the people that everybody is clamoring over and things like that, and do everything that they do. So when I got to Washington, I would watch Ernest Biner and Darryl Green, and I would watch them after practice. And I didn't want to bother them, so I would go to the other field and do what they were doing. Coach Gibbs one day told me, say, I see you over there. I see what's going on here. So you can't learn like today in this day and age, where you watch it, the league is no longer that the most experienced guy, the guy that comes from got that great story, becomes the leader, becomes the captain. It's the first rounders. It's the guys that make the most money, So when I got here, I wanted to be around the guys that they went crazy over. I wanted to talk to Monty Coleman because they said he was like a double-digit round pick. But hell, he was the best cover linebacker on that football team. So I just think that the way I was raised by a military dad made me understand some different things. And like, I remember when I got here, guys would always say, oh man, you went to what school? What is that? So I said, wait till we get on the field. I'll show you. Because it's competition is competition.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I want. The more I'm around it, like, the number one thing I want is a guy who's going to compete first and foremost.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to separate, I want someone who's going to compete, because that's what this league is about, right?
Exactly.
So one of the things too is recently Devin Hester gets to the Hall of Fame, and as anybody listening to this would say, like, you should be there too. I would agree with them. But how much do you think him getting in can now help your cause?
I think it can, because it takes one person to do it first, and then they can start looking at others. Actually, I was at the Super Bowl and I went to an event, and James Lofton, unsolicited, said, get ready. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, hey, he's in now. You'll get in too. And I don't know how true it is, but Tim Brown told me the same thing. I had other guys saying it to me. So at least hearing that stuff, it makes you feel like there is a better chance. But the ultimate thing is, it shouldn't just be one. You know what I mean? Everybody do things differently. And I always use this example, like, they talk about the elusiveness and this, that, and the other. Well, Jerome Bettis wasn't like Barry Sanders.
Right.
So you basically look at Devin as Barry Sanders, and I'm Jerome Bettis. You know what I'm saying? We still got the job done. That's all that matters.
Well, and I also, how much do you think it should be? Because I don't have a vote. And I told you, like, if I'm on that committee, like, you got my vote because I watched you. But how much do the fact that you were, because I remember when you got cut, I remember even writing this, like, they're going to take they're going to need 4 or 5 guys to replace you. How much, because I know, like, they look at it as a return person, but do you kind of want to say, listen, I was more than that, and that should strengthen my case?
Well, John, when I was asked what I considered myself coming out of college, I said a football player. And I still believe I was a football player, because I played running back. I played fullback. I played kick return. I played punt return. I was a quarterback. I would line up at wide out. I would line up in the slot. I was the guy back deep when it was a field goal, if it was a long one, playing the safety position. I covered kicks and punts. I was also the second string holder. So that's a football player.
Right.
A guy who did everything. So I just think that when we start looking at this game of football, it has gotten to a point where people think only pass rushers, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, cornerbacks, and maybe every once in a while they'll throw offensive linemen in there. That's the only people. But there are other people out there. And if you're the best of the best in your position, okay, why shouldn't you be in the Hall of Fame? Because I will say this. As much as I love Joe Montana, he couldn't return a punt. I bet you that.
No.
I love Jerry Rice. He would have done what I did. You know, as much as I love a lot of these other guys, they would not have been able to do the decision-making and the things as consistently as I did and as long as I did. So, you know, we can sit up here and act like that's not a position. And I think a lot of people sometimes don't listen to what coaches say. Coaches say 3 phases all the time. I played in a football game in the playoffs against John Gruden and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They kicked the first one, I went 75, and they squib kicked the rest of the day. At the end of the game, he said he was worried about one person, Brian Mitchell. So if a coach is going to be in a playoff game worried about that return guy is kind of special.
Well, yeah, and its impact on the game. And when you, again, I think like to me, it's a mindset. And I want guys who have that mindset that want to play, do all that stuff, who are quote unquote football players, because to me, like that's how you win with guys like that. So, you know, like that's how again, I don't think you can build a good football team without tough, smart guys and guys who can fill multiple roles. But
I, as a football player, when the defense was on the field, I ran the plays against the defense. So I knew when they had a trick play, I knew the formation. So I would sit there and Richie Pettibone, I would talk, even Jim Johnson when I was in Philly, he would say, hey, if you see something, let me know. I didn't just sit on the sideline. So I was a guy who did a lot of things because I started off football. I was a center and a defensive end in the 6th grade. 7th grade, they moved me to running back. I don't know why. Then I go to 8th grade, the coach said, hey, you're the best athlete on the team. And he moved me to quarterback, and I played quarterback the rest of the time. Then I get to the NFL, and I get the chance to play everything, you know? So it's whenever, and I'm the type of person where if I can help the team, I'm going to help the team, whether it's me going out there using my physical abilities or being able to watch something based off of what I've seen in practice.
But you got to love the game to do it like that. And, you know, so how many guys do you think on a roster truly loved it the way you did?
I don't know how many. I would say it's far, like you got 53 guys on the roster, and I would say it was far less than 10 that loved it like that. Guys may have loved it enough to do their job and all the focus on their job, but you know, like you may have heard me say it on the radio, it's a first job mentality, okay? They asked me to come here and be a return man. And after I got to a point or a level where I felt I was secure enough at that, then I wanted to learn everything else and also help other positions, because if I start doing all the other stuff and I'm not doing my job good, they have the right to say, hey, you're not good at your job. Why are you doing all this other stuff? Sure. Well, they understood that, because I remember Coach Gibbs was asking me, you know, about some plays, and I said, well, I already got all that, Coach. He said, what do you mean? I said, I learned the whole playbook. He said, why? I said, because that's what I do. I'm a quarterback, you know, because I didn't get here and just look at the returns and the running back position. I looked at everything that the quarterback would look at, and that's why it made the game come so much easier for me, being a quarterback, to where I had to know who the lineman had to block. I had to know what type of defense they were in. So as a running back, I can sit up here and kind of determine what's going to happen here. If I set this tackle up, he's going to try to jump outside. My guy will block. I have a cutback lane, you know, get the linebacker flowing. So the game came a little different because of me being a quarterback. Then when I moved back to the return position, it was just me still being a quarterback further back, where I could see everything out in front of me a little better.
And the other thing I always admire about you, you have a really good BS meter. And I think that has served you well over the years. And so I'm curious, your initial impressions of this new staff. We were out there the other day talking to the assistant coaches. I know, you ran into Ken Norton and, but I'm curious, like what your long way to go. We got to see what happens in the season, et cetera. But what are your early impressions of what's
going on? Early impressions is I'm impressed because, when everybody was like clamoring for Ben Johnson, I kept saying, why is he the guy? Yes, he had done some stuff for a few years, but when you become a head coach now, you have to have some level of knowledge and knowing people. So all of a sudden, Dan Quinn becomes the guy. Everyone thought that Kingsbury was going to Oakland. He backed out of that deal. He came here. You look at Lynn. He's a former head coach.
Good.
Okay. Jason Simmons, I heard that they were asked for him to try and talk to him at first, but all of a sudden, Jason is here. Jason is the pass game coordinator on defense. A good friend of mine. Ken was damn good as a player, and he's been very good as a coach as well. So when you start going around that whole little deal, you see guys with experience.
Yeah.
And on top of it, they don't expect one guy to do everything. They got a defensive coordinator, but then they have a defensive run game guy and a defensive pass game guy. They have the offensive, and they do the same thing. But look at the offense, okay? You look at the offense, you have Kingsbury, you have Brian Johnson, and then you have Lynn. That's basically coordinator, and two former head coaches that are running your offense now. So and like they said, they got people from different backgrounds, different offenses, different defenses, to where now it's not me trying to learn something. I can now bounce it off of this guy who knows how to run another one and how to attack a certain defense that we may be seeing. So I'm very impressed. And I remember talking to Adam Peters when I was at the Super Bowl. I went to one of their Commanders events, and I said, man, y'all getting a lot of coaches. He said, man, that's Dan Quinn. They're coming because of him. And when you hear them discuss leader of men, well, it's something good about this, man. Yes, the NFL, I know, is only 32 jobs in those positions, but ultimately, when people want to work for somebody, that guy has something special about it.
And, and I heard that too. Like, he had guys coming up to him at the Senior Bowl. Now, that always happens, but a lot of guys were coming up that just, I think it blew him away how many people were coming up to them about him. But,
listen,
like, the other thing is,
I'm not on the coaching staff. And you know how many people have called me that had jobs that wanted to leave their jobs to come here and say, hey, man, if you put in a word for me, I'm like, dude, I don't have any connection with these guys. So it was people with jobs trying to come here.
And, and I, again, it's what you heard throughout this process. Why I kept saying, like, he's at or near the top the entire time on their list. Mm-hmm. But, so the atmosphere out there, every time there's a new staff, there's a new energy or vibe. Mm-hmm. Did it feel, we've both been around. To me, it felt different with this one.
It felt exciting, but it also felt like we have a bunch of adults around. And it seems so much more real now that it's not the games of Vinny. It's not the games of Bruce. It's now where you got a legitimate guy who's a young and up-and-coming guy running this ship. You also have a situation to where I've watched it closely. Every time Harris and his crew are in around anybody, they are uncomfortable trying to do everything. They want to push the guy who they want to run this football program out. We've never really seen that. You know what I'm saying? We always saw somebody else, like, as Suge Knight said, Puffy all up in all his guys' videos. You always had Dan or one of those GMs trying to run the show all the time instead of letting the people running the show who should be running it. So that feels different to me. But I understand too. I understand that we have to wait and see how this thing goes. But the thing I also feel is that we always were winning the offseason. Yeah. And in a sense, there are people in this town who think we lost the offseason because Ben Johnson went back where he was going. Crazy. And for me, being here for so many years, watching us win the offseason and then stink in the regular season, kind of makes me feel like the tide is changing. We didn't win the offseason to some people's mind. I think we did, though, because they did stuff the right way. And now I feel, well, since they didn't think we won it, then we may win the season then. So I understand it's going to take some time, but I'm willing to give them the time. And I'm on the radio daily, and I hear people talk. And I have now sensed that people want to give them that level of respect, but they can't get out of thinking that the old regime is still intact.
Oh, that's definitely a part of it too. I don't blame people. Like they have some PTSD from that 24 years.
But when you to start to receive things differently, you got to change the way you think. And I think that for some way they're gonna have to at least give them a chance. Don't already blame. Like, I would hear things happening in the off season, and they would talk, oh yeah, this is the same. It's not the same people.
No,
believe me. And having one conversation with whether Josh or Mark or Mitchell or Magic you will know this is not the same group that's running.
It's extremely different. And again, it's very different from what I've been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I had an agent the other day, I was talking to him about one of their clients who is here, and he started referencing how they did it in the past. I said, no, I said, it's not like, you can't do that anymore. It's not this, like, I was surprised he actually was doing that, because I'm like, it's not the same group. It's, you know, you can't look at like what happened before, because none of those people aren't here. I mean, no, it was just, it's very different. And, you know, and I think I said on your show the other day that to me, the best thing you saw this offseason was at the dais at the table for Dan Quinn's presser was Harris, Peters, and Quinn. Like, we haven't seen a setup like that in forever.
It's been a while. And everything is about the betterment of this football team.
It is.
It's not about any jokes, horrible jokes. It's not about the individuals. It's about what we are here to do to take this franchise back to where it was. And, you know, I when I hear people talking like that, I have to back up and give them their freedom to go out and do your stuff. Now, if we're 3 years down the road, things haven't changed, I have the right to say something. You know, we 2 years down the road, we got the right to say something. But right now, I think it's best to support and try to help out and let them, because just like I said, when they get a quarterback, they have to get full support from the franchise. So as long as we're sitting here and we got this franchise coming up, and we all went crazy when Josh and his crew bought the team. We lost our mind when Adam was hired. And then ever since then, we've questioned everything that they've done.
Well, that's what I found funny is that, I love what Josh Harrison. I love Adam Peters. Like, how could you hire? Like, but to me, like, I agree with you. Like, this coaching staff is a reflection of Dan Quinn. Totally. And we don't know what they're going to do during the season, but they are set up to be able, if they can get that success, to be able to sustain it long-term better than they have in a long time.
And that's the thing about it, John, you have to have things in the right position. When I first got here, and then once Dan purchased his team, I always talked about the chain of command. I grew up in a military household, okay? You don't hear any privates going straight to the general, right? You know what I mean? Right. Everybody know what that step is. And I think when I got into pro football, people were like always talking, yeah, man, you got to have the coach. But I talked to Coach Bro when I first got here, you know, and then Coach Bro would go over and talk to Rod Dowhauer, and Dowhauer would talk to Coach Gibbs. Now, if I did something wrong, Coach Gibbs would come straight to me. But when I was dealing with stuff I had to know, I talked to my position coach. Right. The same way it was in high school and college. And when I was in high school and college, I was a quarterback, which means I can go and talk to the head coach a lot quicker than anybody else on the team. But then my players decided, okay, well, Brian, since you got the direct line to coach, they will come to me. And I'm like, no. Did you talk to your coach yet? Because I understood that, because once that gets broken, you got a problem. When guys were able to go to Dan or Vinny around their position coaches and Coach Gibbs and other coaches, that was a problem.
It was a problem.
Yeah.
Last thing then, it's all quarterback right now, going forward for a couple months. You got an early leader in that race for yourself?
For me, I think, like we talk about it on the radio all day, we think Caleb Williams is going to be drafted by the Bears.
Yeah.
Had Brad Biggs on a show, and he had discussed it about, you know, hey, a lot of people feel that Fields hadn't done enough playing on the field to really just solidify a job. Well, if Caleb Williams is supposed to be his next best thing, Chicago not letting him go.
Right.
Okay. Unless somebody come and offer the dumbest thing they could. And then after that, I know we talk a lot about, you know, May and things like that, but I'm on Daniels. The reason is because this game of football now is played a lot faster. Okay. And the guy that can create and the guy that can prolong, that guy gives you a better chance. And I know a lot of people say, well, when he get hit, look like he's being killed. Well, he took some hits. I saw that. But the thing I'm still amazed by, he got up every time. And, you know, I think back, and I want everybody to understand this. Pat Mahomes is amazing right now. He is the best. He could probably end up being the best ever.
Yeah.
But when he was being drafted, 9 teams for sure passed on him.
Yeah.
Okay. Andy Reid picked him. And you know what all of the pundits were saying? He does nothing on schedule. He has all these arm things. He takes a sack. He tries to do too much. hero ball. What is everybody trying to do right now? Find Pat Mahomes. So the closest thing I saw to Pat Mahomes on the football field this year just passed in college was Jaden Daniels. And I know that Caleb did it the year before, but he fell off some last year. Why? I don't know. Could have been his team, whatever. But Jaden Daniels was, and the people about him, this should piss him off. People say he just got better every year. Well, what the hell you want to do?
Listen, like I try to find something I like about all these guys that you can build on, something that you're going to be concerned about. But even with the running, and I'm a big believer, like it's going to be hard to survive that way in the NFL. But to your point, I love the competitiveness that leads to it. And I love the fact that he gets up, and I was talking to Logan Paulson about this earlier today. Like, he's also very pliable. So like, he's not getting hurt on there. Like, cause he's got this flexibility to him when he gets hit that it's like, it's kind of like, ooh, but it's, but he gets up. And so there's a lot to like about him in particular. I think there's stuff to like about May, and you're gonna have to boil it down to who you like best. And it's probably going to go back and forth, but there is a lot to like. And like I said, I mean, that to me is that competitiveness that you always look for.
And if they listen, as London Fletcher stated, whoever they pick, I'm going to give them full support. Because if I'm sitting up there saying that this person needs support, and when he gets picked, if I don't give him support, then I'm being a hypocrite. So I think either of the three, either of the three, I'm willing to see what they can do with, because I believe this team that we have now, this coaching team, we call it coaching staff, one thing that they've done, if you look at the history of a lot of these guys, they get the best out of their players.
Yes.
And if we can just start getting that out of our players moving forward, that'll make us a better franchise, better football team.
You know, it's funny because I'm glad you said that, because the other day on the podcast, I did say, like, I think this team is set up to develop a quarterback. And so so whoever comes here, I think they have a good chance to develop, whether it's May, whether it's Daniels, whomever. I think this staff has a good chance to develop them, and I think they'll be okay. So B-Mitch, thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate you, Jay.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Brian for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Tuesday morning with another episode, so I'll talk to you next time.